Everyone, it's Mari here with another episode of Tried, Trendy, and True for Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. I'm going to be working with the gorgeous Simple Stories Simple Vintage Life in Bloom today to create this sweet layout that I did using a photo of my sweet little grandson. And I'm going to start off my process here with this beautiful paper from the collection. It's the 3x4 Elements paper. I really wanted to use this diagonal stripe side. I love that it works in basically all of the colors that are in the collection, which will make it really great for adding the die cuts and different little bits and pieces from the collection. They'll all coordinate nicely with this paper. So I tore the paper here, as you can see, in a vertical strip. I wanted it to be not straight. I wanted it to have an interesting sort of shape to it. So you can see how it's a little bit wider at the top. I did roll the edge of that torn paper there. And now what I'm doing with my Vicki Boutin Foundations paper is I'm adding a little bit of salvaged patina to the paper. So I just put a little bit of that on my craft mat, that ink, and then you can just see how I'm adding water to it and picking it up with both the brush and a little bit of plastic packaging and applying that to the paper just to create that little bit of blue color behind my paper. It's going to get covered up to a certain extent, but it's also going to kind of poke out here and there and just provide that little bit of colored interest in the background. So I'm just moving that pigment around on the paper. I'm not using a lot of water because, you know, it's just paper. I don't want the paper to buckle too much. So I'm trying not to add too much water, but just a little bit to get that ink to move around. And again, that salvaged patina distress oxide ink, and you can just see how I'm just stamping that out onto my craft mat and then picking it up. Now here I want to splatter, so I'm going to create some splatters along the edge of that color as well and into the center, towards the center area of the layout. And this is just going to help create some more texture on the project, adding those little bits of splatter. And so that the ink is going to make this color really nice and subtle. It's not really bold, but it's definitely going to add some interest and depth and dimension to the project in that way. So I'm using both a small brush and a larger brush to get different sizes of splatter here. And the larger brush is just, it's going to go a little bit faster because it can hold more water, and I'll just get a little bit more splatter action happening with that bigger brush. Now I'm just taking my Ranger heat tool here and I'm just heating the paper a little bit to dry those splatters so that they don't take forever. And this process will be sped up a little bit in that way. So once I'm finished with that, I'll be ready to go on to the next step of the project here. So just going to finish that up. I love that this heat tool doesn't get too hot so that it doesn't kind of cook the paper too much, which is nice. And any extra droplets I'll just pick up with my paper towel there. And now this will be ready for the next step. So there you can just see how pretty that is. It's just really nice and subtle, like I said. Now I'm using a Vicki Boutin stencil here from one of Vicki's collections. I have all of Vicki's stencils. I'm not sure which collection this goes with, but I love the stencil, as I do all of her stencils. They're fantastic. And this is some Altenew embossing paste. I'm just taking that paste and running it through the stencil here and there in the white space on the project. And what that's going to do is just add some really nice texture. Now this texture does not always show up well in photos or in a video. So sometimes you have to actually try it yourself to really see what you get for a result with this technique. It is very effective, and I just love the texture that it adds to a project. So I often use texture paste or modeling paste, whatever, on my projects. So here's my sweet little photo of my grandson. I've printed that in black and white. It's, I want to say, probably about 4 by 3.5. And so it's just a nice size to be the dominant photo. I plan to put it just to the left of that striped paper. So I want to use a little bit of some more color on the other side of where that photo is going to sit. So this time I'm using Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink, and this matches beautifully with the green that's in the collection. I do end up adding a little bit of blue to this area. I think I add a little bit of Blueprint Sketch. And I think I do that off camera. So just to tone the green down slightly, I add a little bit of blue over top of it. It changes the look slightly, but you'll see that once that area is all completed. And again, just using those same methods to get that ink onto the paper and splattering a little bit. You can even move the pigment around with your finger if you want, just to soften the edges of the ink. So I'm just picking that up and splattering until I'm really happy with how much texture and dimension this is going to add to my layout and my background. And just going to finish that up. Now, I do love adding a little bit of subtle mixed media to my projects. It's one of my go-to techniques that I really love. Yeah, it's just something that's become a really true technique for me. I use it often. So this is some of the 6x8 paper from the collection, from the Simple Vintage Life in Bloom collection. And I love how this black really pops in the for the photo mat. So I wanted to just use a little bit of this paper, and I like the torn edge on the top. And so I'm going to do a little bit of paper tearing just to kind of duplicate that texture that's in the paper on the right, that vertical paper with the stripes. And so I'm going to tear this blue paper at the bottom. So I'll have a little bit of torn paper at the top and the bottom of the photomat area, and just having a little bit of those papers sticking out around the photo, not too much, just a little bit. And those, of course, coordinate nicely with the pattern paper. The pattern paper with the diagonal stripes does have the black in it, the blue, and of course that gorgeous, well, there's no green in the photo mat yet, but I love the element of that green on the layout as well. So here you can just see I'm just kind of offsetting those pattern papers, and I'm not sure why I put that paper in there sideways, but anyways, I'm going to add a little bit of ephemera to the mat as well. And I cut that in half so that it can be poking out on the top and bottom. This banner is from the sticker sheet, from the 12x12 sticker sheet from the collection. And I've stuck that down to some cardstock because I want to make this into more of a die cut than a sticker. So what I did was I put it onto some white cardstock, and now I'm just fussy cutting around it. It's going to make it a little bit thicker and have a little bit more substance than just what the sticker would have. And I'm going to use this as one of the main elements of the ephemera for the project. So I'm just going all around these different little areas. And when I'm finished, I'm just going to have this really nice banner to add to my project. Now there's another banner that I wanted to use here. This again is on one of the papers in the 8x6 paper pad. And I love that the little banner pieces are gingham. Love that. I love the mix of that gingham with the stripe over on the right. I think it's really fun. And so I fussy cut that out, and that's going to be one of my elements as well. Now I've sized my main part of my layout, my white paper and my stripe paper, down to 11.5 by 11.5. And I'm actually going to add that to some black 12x12 cardstock as a black mat. And that's really going to finish off nicely the frame around my project. I really like using that technique to frame out a layout. Now I'm going to add that pattern paper over to the side again. And I've added a little bit of sewing to the torn edge of the paper. I'm not sure if you can see that, but right along the torn edge of that striped paper, I ran that through my sewing machine twice, and it's just like a really wonky sewing line. And then I did take this back to the sewing machine once I had this adhered down, and I stitched around the whole perimeter of the white foundations paper. So I've got some really nice stitching going on now. I'm going to put the photo mat layer together. I'm adding some craft foam on the back of the photo, and then I'll adhere that onto the black patterned paper, again, leaving it sticking out a little bit on the left and then above where that torn edge is. And then what I'll do with the blue paper is I'll leave the blue paper just sticking out on the other side of the black, and then you can see the torn edge at the bottom. So loving that, how that photo mat is looking. And again, here you can just see I'll start adding those other pieces in that I chose earlier for the photo mat. So I just wanted to distress the edges of the paper a little bit with my fingernail. And now you can see I've added some sewing on the ephemera at the top, the ephemera piece at the top. And then that blue paper that's torn at the bottom there, I added some sewing to that as well, just to add that little bit of extra texture to the project, which I love. I love a layout that has that extra little bit of texture. So here you can just see my ideas here for these banners. I wanted to lay them, slightly offset them over to the left of the photo, one slightly higher than the other. And I'm just adjusting where the photo is going to be so that I can make sure that my banners are going to be in the right place. And then of course I plan to embellish in different little areas with these banners in mind. So you can see some of the different little floral stickers and die cut pieces that I've chosen to go in the different areas. And now I'm ready to start to commit and get things adhered down. So this is just a little bit of liquid adhesive that I'm using. I put some craft foam on the bottom of the mats now that they're all put together. And that's going to really bump up that photo mat area. It's now got 2 layers of craft foam in it, so it's nice and dimensional. I just put a little bit of weight on that photo. I'll grab my T-square ruler and make sure that the photo is straight. If it's not, I'll just adjust it slightly, and then I'll put that paper weight back onto the photo. Or yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do, and hold it there for a few seconds and just make sure that it's really well adhered. Now I'm going to grab some foam adhesive. I'll put some on each one of those different little banners so that each part of that banner is equally dimensional. Now I've got that popped up to about the amount where I want it. I'm thinking, nope, I think I need a double layer of adhesive here because the photo has 2 layers of adhesive. I want the banner to be of equal dimension. So I've got 2 layers of foam dots on this lower banner. So I'm just adhering that again, so it's slightly lower. And then this top banner, I adhered with just 1 layer of foam because it's tucked in behind the photo a little bit more. And I wanted it to be a little bit of a different level of dimension than the bottom banner. So the bottom banner is higher than the top banner. Now I'm going to take some of these sweet little florals, a smaller and larger one of the same color, that really pretty kind of teal color, and pop those in those different areas there. And this die cut piece here with the word magical on it and that purple butterfly, I just love that. I think it's gorgeous. So I have an idea of where I want to put the title and my journaling. So I put that little butterfly piece down below the photo with my title and my journaling in mind. And now I'm just going to take some of the other little stickers and ephemera bits and add them to the different little clusters. So I put that little they're a little cluster of leaves and they actually have text on them, which is fun. And those came from the 12 by 12 sticker sheet. So I'll just add those above the flower. And then I put another flower over top with foam adhesive just to add that extra dimension. Now I'm taking one of the chickets and I'm just going to tear that in half and just tuck part of that in the cluster where the flower is on the photo mat area, and that's just going to add that little bit of extra detail in that area as well. And now I'm starting to think about what else I can add. I grabbed a little sentiment sticker from the sticker sheet. This says "This Moment" on it. I love adding little sentiment stickers to the edges of my photos. These are some puffy alphas from my stash. I've got those all in place, and now I'm going to use a Hero Arts die to die cut out my journaling strips. I got this idea from Jana Eubank, so thank you so much, Jana. And I'm just showing you here which die this is from Hero Arts. I typed out all of my journaling in Google Docs, and now you can just see how that's going to line up perfectly. I run that through my Gemini and all of my journaling strips are trimmed out. So I love that die. It works really well. And those extra little journaling strips I'll keep in a little container, a little Ziploc bag. And those you can actually use to hand write your journaling as well. So love that die. It works really, really well. Now I'm adding some foam adhesive onto the back of all of my strips. And that's just going to bump them up and give them a little bit of dimension, which is nice. The puffy stickers with the word loved are flat to the layout, and then the journaling strips are going to be dimensional, just to give that little bit of extra interest. Just using my T-square ruler to make sure that I have the strips straight. And now I've got those all tucked into that area. There's a fun little niche that's just perfect for this embellishment just below the journaling. So I'm going to pop this up with some foam adhesive, and I'll add this into that little niche area below the journaling. It's just a perfect little spot for that. And that is going to finish off that little area down below. And I just love that. I love how it brings out that really beautiful lilac color that's in the stripe paper. And I couldn't resist adding this sweet little pink butterfly here. I think it's just adorable. And again, brings out the pinks that are in all of the different papers and embellishments that I've used. So really loving how that's looking. Now I can't ever resist adding some white splatter to my projects. Talk about texture. This is a really easy way to add texture to your project, and it's white, so you know when it dries it's going to be really subtle. It's not like adding black splatter, which is a little bit, I love adding black splatter to some projects, but the thing with white is it just kind of goes with everything, and it just does add a really pretty texture. Now I've covered up my photo, and anything that has text on it I've covered as well. And just because I find that if I white splatter over top of text, sometimes it distorts the text and you can't read it properly. So I like to cover it up. And I'm just using a little brush and just brushing this on here quite liberally. I use quite a bit, but I love that it's bright white. This is Dina Wakley White Gloss Spray. And I just love the texture that it adds. And it's just so pretty. It's just a really great finishing touch to really any project, whatever it is that you're working on. So I'm happy with how that looks, and I'm ready to kind of take all the little bits of paper off and reveal how the project looks. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I love the black border around the outside of the layout. That frame just really finishes the project off. And you wouldn't have to have that. I mean, the white bleed off the edge would also be fine with the white paper, but this is just another look, and it just kind of depends on personal preference. I don't add a matte as a frame to all of my projects, but I don't know, sometimes it just feels right. And with this project, I just really wanted to add this on. So here you can just see, I'm just going to flip this over and trim off anything that's kind of over the edge for embellishments. And that's just going to finish this off. And that will complete my project today, friends. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were inspired. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks for working with this collection or any of the collections that you have in your stash. And hopefully you got some tips and tricks for adding some texture and dimension to your projects. And I loved how this turned out, and I hope you did too. Have an amazing day, my friends. I hope to see you soon. Stay well, stay safe, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.